Today I'm going to talk about my favorite game mechanism in Fields of Arle. I want to do a quick shout out to Kingdom's Lawn Game. Denny sent me this t-shirt because his project, the Kingdom's Lawn Game, launched on Kickstarter today. That's unrelated to Fields of Arle, which I played for the first time recently at a game day. We had a situation where I think there were 5 people who wanted to play one game, and then there were 2 that were the odd men out, me and one other guy. And I've been wanting to play Fields of Arle from one of my favorite designers, Uwe Rosenberg, for quite some time, and he offered to teach me, and we played. And of course, I had a blast. It's a wonderful game. It's a very highly rated game, and there are a lot of mechanisms in it, as in all Uwe Rosenberg games. But there's one thing that I thought was really cool that was not only fun in Fields of Arle, but one thing that I'd like to see in some other worker placement games too, which is that there are a few action spots that allow you to upgrade other actions. So there are all these worker placement action spots on the board. They're divided by season. That part is largely irrelevant to what I'm saying right now. But each player has these little round tokens. They're almost too small, but these little round tokens that go on tracks associated with each action. And the placement of where those tokens are tells you how good that action is when you actually go there. So you go to one action to upgrade that, to move those little tokens along the tracks, and then later on you can place a worker on that actual action itself, and based on what you see on the track gives you what you earn. So for example, there's one, and this is not going to be a precise example because it's been maybe a month since I played it, but there's one where you can cut wood, and if you have learned to cut wood better, you might take that action and get, say, 4 wood with a single action. Whereas if you haven't upgraded that action, when you go there, you might only get 1 or 2 wood. I love this. I absolutely love it. Usually when we see upgrades like this, it's something that's in your own tableau, like a card that you get that says, hey, now you're better taking wood, or maybe on your player mat, like in Scythe, where on your player mat it says, hey, you're better taking this action now. But I love that it's out there on the board for everyone to see. There's something about it being in a shared space where the actions themselves are that make it almost more intuitive, because you're not having to look back and forth between the actions on the board and the actions on your player mat or your tableau. It's all right there on the board, right next to the action. I guess the one downside there is that if you bump the board, and that's where these tokens are so small that if you bump the board, they could go everywhere. In a 2-player game, it's not a huge deal because there's only 2 of those tokens, but if you had a version of this in a game with 4, 5, 6 players and you bump those tokens, it might be impossible to replace them. The other really cool thing about this is, as with tracks in many games, if you get to the top of the track, the end of the track, you might get some endgame points for it. And I think that's really important in game design, because if usually at the end of the, it's great to take the upgrade action early in the game, because then you know, okay, for the rest of the game, I'm going to get this more powerful action. But as the game proceeds, the upgrade action becomes kind of less valuable, because you're going to be taking those actions, the upgraded actions, less often. And so there needs to be an incentive further up on the track to continue to use that upgrade action, or it just becomes irrelevant late in the game. So I really like that there are some points on the tracks as well. But overall, I really just love the idea of upgrading worker placement action spots visually on the board itself. It's a really, really cool mechanism that I'd love to see in other worker placement games. It probably is in some other worker placement games, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. If there's some other worker placement games where actions are actually upgraded on the board itself, not just separately in your tableau. And it really kind of inspired me as a designer, as do many of Uwe Rosenberg's games, to think about this if I design another worker placement game in the future, to maybe have a way to upgrade those actions on the board itself. Just really, really cool action. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you play Fields of Arle, like I said, there are many mechanisms in it. I bet you have a different favorite mechanism in it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Or if you have another game that has upgradable worker placement action spots on the board itself, I'd love to hear about that as well. Thanks.